In the heart of Los Angeles, under the glittering lights of the Staples Center, a storm was brewing on a September night in 2009. The heavyweight division, long starved for excitement, was about to witness the collision of two vastly different worlds. On one side stood the cold, analytical brilliance of Vitali Dr. Iron Fist Klitschko, the reigning WBC heavyweight champion from Ukraine, a man of science, precision, and dominance. On the other side, Chris the Nightmare Arreola, the undefeated Mexican-American brawler from California, a man fueled by heart, passion, and dreams of becoming the first heavyweight champion of Mexican descent. The energy inside the arena was electric. Mexican flags waved beside Ukrainian banners, and chants of Arreola, Arreola, mixed with the thunderous echo of Klitschko, Klitschko. The crowd knew this wasn't just another title fight. This was a battle of intellect versus instinct, discipline versus aggression, and history itself was waiting in the shadows to crown the worthy. As the fighters touched gloves, the tension was thick enough to cut with a blade. The bell rang, and immediately Arreola stormed forward, trying to break through the long, calculating reach of Klitschko. But the champion, ever the tactician, began to measure his distance with surgical precision. His jab, snapping like a piston, set the rhythm of the fight. Every movement from Klitschko was controlled, mechanical, almost emotionless, while Arreola came in swinging, trying to rough him up and make it ugly. Yet every time Chris lunged forward, he met a stiff jab, a straight right, or a glancing uppercut. Klitschko wasn't fighting a man. He was solving a problem. His cold blue eyes tracked every move, every feint, every attempt to close distance. The first few rounds showcased a boxing masterclass. Vitali dictating pace, fighting from the outside, making Arreola work twice as hard to land half as much. By the end of the third, sweat poured down Arreola's face, and his mouth opened as he gasped for breath. He was still coming, but the Ukrainian was already 3 steps ahead, painting the canvas with precision and patience. By the middle rounds, the story of the fight began to take shape. Arreola's aggression was relentless, but his punches were losing steam, while Klitschko looked like a man shadowboxing under bright lights, unfazed, unbothered, unstoppable. Each round was a calculated assault of jabs, 1-2s, and step-back counters that frustrated the challenger. Chris tried to dig to the body, hoping to slow the champion down, but every attempt was met with a hard right hand or a pivot out of danger. Vitali's defense was unorthodox but effective. Hands low, relying on reflexes and distance control honed from decades of experience. The crowd could see it. The champion was dissecting his opponent piece by piece. Yet there was something admirable in Arreola's stubborn heart. He refused to fold. His face reddened, his nose bloodied, but he kept marching forward, throwing punches with sheer willpower. Every time Klitschko landed a clean shot, Arreola smiled through the pain, nodding as if daring the champion to hit him harder. This was not just a fight, it was an act of defiance from a man unwilling to surrender his dream. But Vitali Klitschko was not the type to be drawn into chaos. He was the storm and the calm within it. His footwork was almost ghost-like, gliding back, circling, pivoting around Arreola's lunges. The jab continued to punish. The right hand followed like a sniper's shot, and each landed punch chipped away at the challenger's spirit. Still, Chris refused to stop coming. He was swinging with the pride of his heritage, fueled by the cheers of his people, driven by the hope of history. "Keep coming, Chris," his corner yelled. "He's breaking down." But as the rounds progressed, it was Arreola who was breaking. The sweat glistened on his broad shoulders, his breathing labored, his face now a canvas of bruises and blood. Klitschko, meanwhile, remained stoic, a fighter with the calm demeanor of a man conducting an experiment. Each punch part of a formula, each step an equation toward inevitability. The 8th round arrived, and Arreola had entered. The pattern was relentless. the precision clinical. Arreola kept pressing forward, but his punches began to lose their form. His body language started to sag. The difference between the two men was no longer just skill. It was endurance, composure, and control. Klitschko was the mountain, immovable and unshaken. The crowd, once roaring with anticipation, now watched in awe as the Ukrainian surgeon performed his art under pressure. It wasn't a brawl anymore. It was a masterclass, a cold dismantling of a brave but overmatched opponent. By the ninth, the scene had grown cruel. Every jab snapped Arreola's head back. His eyes were swollen. Blood trickled from his mouth. And yet, between rounds, he smiled. A broken smile of a warrior who refuses to be tamed. His corner begged him to move his head, to get inside, to land something, anything. But Klitschko's timing was impeccable. He was hitting without being hit, controlling without being touched. The commentators began to marvel at the sheer efficiency of the champion's performance. "He's fighting with a PhD in boxing," one remarked, and it wasn't far from the truth. Vitali held a doctorate in sports science, and tonight he was proving that even in the brutal art of boxing, intelligence could be the deadliest weapon. Still, Arreola's courage commanded respect. Even when his body betrayed him, his heart refused to yield. Round 10 came, and with it, the end of the nightmare. Arreola stumbled forward again, throwing wide hooks that barely grazed the air. Klitschko stood tall, calm, jabbing with mechanical precision, pivoting away like a machine built for perfection. The challenger's punches had lost their sting. His movements slowed, his face battered beyond recognition. Yet, even as the fight slipped away, Chris refused to take a backward step. The crowd rose to their feet, roaring in admiration, not just for the champion's brilliance, but for the challenger's unbreakable will. Then, in the corner, trainer Henry Ramirez saw enough. He knew his fighter's pride would never allow him to quit, but a trainer's job is to protect his warrior from himself. As the bell rang to end the 10th, Ramirez signaled to the referee. The nightmare was over. The towel had been metaphorically thrown. The referee stepped in, waving his arms, and the Staples Center erupted, not in disappointment, but in a bittersweet roar of respect. Vitali Klitschko raised his gloves, expression unchanged, the Iron Giant standing over another fallen challenger. Across the ring, Chris Arreola sat on his stool, tears welling in his eyes. He wept, not from pain, but from heartbreak. He had given everything he had, and still couldn't solve the puzzle that was Vitali Klitschko. The champion walked over, placed a gloved hand on Arreola's shoulder, and offered words of respect. It was a moment that transcended sport, a scene of humanity between warriors who had shared 10 brutal rounds in the ring. In the post-fight aftermath, the stats told the story. Klitschko had landed over twice as many punches, with an accuracy that bordered on mathematical. But the real story wasn't in the numbers. It was in the contrast of two men. One, the cerebral technician who conquered the ring through precision and poise. The other, a fearless brawler whose heart refused to die. That night, Vitali Klitschko proved why he was one of the most dominant champions of his era. And Chris Arreola, in defeat, earned something far greater than a belt. He earned respect. The Staples Center crowd, once divided, united in a standing ovation for both men. In the final moments, as Vitali stood beneath the lights, his championship belt gleaming under the flashes of cameras, there was a sense that fans had witnessed not just another title defense, but a lesson in mastery. Boxing, at its purest, is both science and art. And on that night, the doctor of the ring, Vitali Klitschko, reminded the world that brains and discipline can conquer even the fiercest heart. Yet, deep down, everyone who saw Chris Arreola's tears knew this. While the Iron Fist retained his crown, the Nightmare's courage would live on in memory. In the theater of boxing, some losses shine brighter than victory, and this was one of them. Would you like me to extend it into a full voiceover script format, with timestamps, pacing cues, and narration tone for editors. That version fits perfectly for a highlight documentary narration.